As I've ventured through my own experiences with film photography, I've had a lot of opportunity to figure out what kind of camera suits me best. Rangefinders are fun, but I struggle to get compositions I'm truly happy with, so I've drifted towards SLRs since they allow me to get the most control over my composition, but make me trade away compactness. But point and shoots have always eluded me for a couple of reasons. At first, I simply disregarded them as feeling touristy, but I began to have a sense that I could have some fun with a more casual camera and trying to get shots I enjoyed out of such a device, so then the barriers became cost and availability. There are plenty of focus-free cameras floating around that I would inevitably find myself dissatisfied with, but most autofocusing solutions have become swept up in exposure and prohibitively expensive, or had zoom lenses, which I am not a fan of. That is where this camera comes in. The Kodak VR35 K12. I bought this camera at my local thrift store for a whopping $6. Sporting infrared autofocus and a 35mm f2.8 glass lens assembly, I had no idea if it would work, but I was brought in by its wonderful mid-80s charms and resolved that if it didn't function, I would at least have a shelf camera and something to check the used market for if I wanted a working one. After a momentary hiccup in its resuscitation, I indeed had a working camera on my hands. I decided what better way to test a Kodak camera than with some Kodak film, and decided to go with a roll of Tri-X so I could develop the roll at home. The images were shot over the course of a couple weeks, and during that time I became rather familiar with the camera and what I do and don't like about it. For the most part, this camera is very fun to use. The autofocus is faster than I expected, and it was actually very ergonomically pleasant. The grip is sizable and has nice grooves to help give your fingers purchase, and turning the camera on and off is as simple as flipping the cover flash up or down. Can't say I'm a fan of the neck strap and how it comes out of the side of the camera though, which is a shame because it's actually really nice material-wise. I also had some trouble with the fill flash switch since, on my unit at least, it's a bit too easy to flick back and forth, meaning it would often be switched on incidentally in handling. I'd also like to take a moment to appreciate that when the roll was being rewound by the camera back into the canister, there was about an inch of the film leader left out, which made extracting the film for development extremely easy. That's enough about the camera itself though. How do the images look? See for yourself. Objects in focus are adequately sharp, and the fairly notable distortion in the corners of the frame are a small price to pay, I would say. The camera definitely performs best in close to medium range. Infinity focus ends up being a little flat and indistinct compared to the sharpness of closer objects, but I can't say that bothers me considering the kind of camera it is. For example, notice how the trees on the other side of the water in this shot almost blend together. I think the nominal distance for infinity is somewhere around 20 to 30 feet for this lens. It also manages its auto exposure fairly well, with any editing I've done being light adjustment to contrast to compensate for how my scanner likes to deal with black and white film. Mid-editing here, I also think there might have been something up with the roll I used. I had two rolls both out of the box, and one of them was expired by at least 10 years and stored in a closet. I think that's the one I ended up grabbing and I didn't realize. The negatives ended up being a little thick and grainier than I expected. So is this going to be the next point and shoot to blow up in popularity? Probably not, no. This is a camera that, while deserving of some attention, ought to stay the budget option it is. It's impressively loud, and despite impressing me as well with some of the results, I certainly understand that it doesn't sport an award-winning lens. But beneath that lies a decent performer that will almost certainly serve you better than any simple-use camera you can buy today, while beating it on price. It's a big, beautiful brick that will get you exactly what you need from it, and on rare occasions, maybe even a little more. Thanks for watching. Scout, can you please move off of my desk? Kinda need this space. Bro.